Hey everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever, whatever time it is where you are. I am so glad to have you here today. I'm actually going to change my microphone so you can hear me a little bit better because it sounds just kind of like I'm in I don't know, it's not as good without this microphone. So I'm going to do that. Better now? So anyhow, I am Mrs. Brown with homeschoolclick.com. If you have been around here for a while, you probably already know that I'm a certified IEW instructor. And for elementary through high school students, I teach writing and grammar classes that lay a foundation for a lifetime of excellent writing. And today we're going to be talking about SSS1B. I'll be reviewing that curriculum with you. Today, I know a lot of us are in that it's the beginning of August and we're like, okay, I have to make a decision. What am I using? What am I going to use for writing and grammar and all of that? So today, if SSS1B for IEW is in your shopping cart and you're wondering, okay, do I go ahead and hit purchase? I will hopefully give you some information that will help you make that decision. And of course, you can always call IEW customer service. They are amazing. They do a great job. That's their number on the screen. So anyhow, if again you have an elementary, middle school, or high school student, and you homeschool, or you're looking for writing sources, I will always come up here and talk about writing. Most of the time, I've been talking a lot about IEW recently just because I teach it and I have just used this curriculum for so long. I love it. It does a great job. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so that you can be notified when I go live and when I will be posting new videos and content. So my question today for you, and go ahead and drop that in the comments or the show notes, or if you're on Facebook, you can drop your message in Facebook. What writing goals do you have for your student this year, especially your middle school student? Because we're talking about middle school today. We're talking about 1B, and if you haven't seen 1B, it looks like this. Mine is a little tattered because I've been hanging around with it and teaching it for a while, even though it's actually a relatively new program. You can see I just kind of I tab it, I write in it, so yours will be a lot prettier. But this is what SSS1B looks like if you haven't already been familiar with that. So go ahead, type in the show notes, type in Facebook, wherever you are, or in YouTube, what writing goals do you have for your student? And we'll talk about the types of things that IEW offers in SSS1B. I really, of course, I'm a big fan of IEW. There are a few things that I would prefer to have seen in the SSS program, but for the most part, I really like it. I've been teaching it for the last 2 years. I teach it with private tutoring students and in groups. So, and if you want help with your student, I do have just a very few spaces in my IEW class for SSS1B this year. So you can always find me on homeschoolclick.com. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. And I'm going to talk about 5 things I really like about SSS1B. And they're about the same for all of the programs, but all of the SSS programs, rather. I love the video lessons. So again, middle school is that kind of dialectic stage, that stage where our students are beginning to want to pull away a little bit, have a little bit more independence. It's also, that dialectic stage is also sometimes when we begin to wrestle a little bit more with our own students. I know I have 4 kids. So again, if you are new here, I have a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 13-year-old. I have all teens. You can start praying for me right now, like just teens. Teens are all in my house. What I don't have in my house is food because they eat it so much and so quickly. But I have gone through that. I'm in that dialectic stage. We homeschooled for 10 years. My students are now in traditional school. So I have 3 who are in public school, 1 who is in private school. But we homeschooled for 10 years and we used IEW throughout. We use a few other things too, but for the most part, our base was IEW. What I like about the video lessons is as your student is moving through that wrestling stage, that dialectic stage, the video lessons really allow you the opportunity to support your student and give them that space to grow in independence. But with the video lessons that they have Andrew Pudawa modeling the writing process for them. So you know that you can give them that space, but they have the proper support. It's almost like training wheels on a bike. You can let go, but they'll still waver a little bit, but they won't completely fall. And so I love that aspect of the video lesson. So um, every single lesson, there are 24 lessons that are found here. Every single lesson has a video lesson that goes along with it, that models the lesson for your student. Now, of course, as we get further along in the lessons, there's not as much modeled, because there are some lessons where your student will have to provide their own resources. So again, he can't model resources he doesn't have. But again, it's a great support for you and your student. It's also a great support if you have multiple kids. Again, I had 4, and it's just hard to divide myself into 4 pieces. So it was nice when we had the video lesson to say, all right, here's student number 1, 2, 3, whichever student you are. Here is the video lesson. I can be nearby, maybe working with another student, but I know my students are engaged watching the video during their writing portion of the homeschooling portion of our day. So I like the video lessons. Number 2, I love the student samples. Now, this is not something that comes inside of your student guide or your teacher guide. So this is something I want to make sure that you know. Definitely make sure you go to your IEW account. Once you log in, go to your files, and you will see in your files student samples for all of the papers that your student will be writing. The nice thing is, especially if you're a newbie and you want to know, okay, what should my student's final paper look like? You have some samples here, and that's really nice. Additionally, some of the other downloads you get a reproducible checklist with points. Again, when we get into that middle school stage, I know a lot of us are thinking, how do I grade? Like, I probably need to start assessing, adding a grade here from time to time, if that's important to us. Some of us, grades, not a huge deal, but if grades are things that you're trying to make sure that you add to writing, IEW makes it easy. So they have checklists inside of the checklist that you're going to get with the actual content each lesson. Those checklists they don't have points associated with them. So let me show you. So in the student guide, and I think in the teacher guide, actually this is the teacher guide. So in the teacher guide, you'll just see a checklist that has lines for your student to check off. But in your downloads, your PDF downloads that you'll get in your files, those will have points. So again, you can give your students a actual score, a grade, and you can feel confident that grade is not, as my kids would call it, a mom grade. It's a grade that actually is consistent with what is expected of them according to the checklist and according to what IEW has laid out. So I love that aspect of the student samples and the checklist. I kind of got ahead of myself here, but it's a good segue into the third thing I like. Every single lesson in SSS1B offers the goals for the week. So that is kind of on what I call the map for the lesson. And you can actually get access to the free lessons. If you go into the show notes, you can click on the link that I have in the show notes. But every single lesson starts with a page that looks like this. I call it the map for the lesson. It starts with goals. I've written all in my book, but it starts with the goals. So your student knows, what is it that I'm going to learn today, or this week rather. Are there new vocabulary words? How many paragraphs will I write? What kind of keyword outline will I write? Things of that nature. What structural unit will I be learning or focusing on? It also have the suggested daily breakdown, which is a schedule breakdown. So again, if you've been around for a while, you know that I have a few students who struggle, particularly with executive functioning skills. And so taking a large assignment or project and breaking that project down into, what should I do each day to make sure I get the whole thing done by XYZ date. That is a skill that has to be built. And IEW kind of builds it already into the program by offering this suggested daily breakdown. So they know day 1, I need to do these 4 things. And if I'm doing fixed grammar, I do the 5th thing. And I know I'm done for the day. I've gotten everything done, so that by the end of the week, by day 4 or day 5, depending on if you have a 4-day homeschooling week or a 5-day homeschooling week, you can have your student follow this. the student knows what to get done. You don't have to write it out for them. You don't have to, um, you know, manage that as much because it's laid out for them every single lesson. Can you say thank goodness that for those of us who have students who are working through that skill and trying to kind of build that skill, definitely that's something that IEW helps with. And then the checklist. We talked a little bit about the checklist already, so I won't kind of rehash that. But every single assignment in SSS1B, which is for your middle school student, has a checklist. And I've mentioned in previous videos that when I was in school, one thing I didn't like, I was actually a fairly good writer, but what I didn't like is from one class to the next, sometimes I would, get an A in one teacher's class and she would sing my praises, and then I would go to the next class and I wouldn't do anything different. But for some reason, my writing wasn't as good to that next teacher, but I never really knew what I did wrong. And so I like that IW with the checklist kind of takes the ambiguity out for you and for the student. They know what to expect. They know how to get complete all of the tasks because the checklist is there. So I love that aspect. It's available for all 4 lessons. So again, I'm going to pause right here. Make sure if you are just diving in, make sure you hit like or subscribe so that you are notified when I post any videos inside of YouTube or Facebook. Make sure you hit like or subscribe on the YouTube page for sure. Or you can, of course, go and like my Facebook page so you're notified. Today, we're talking about the IEW's SSS1B program, and that's for 6th through 8th grade. And I've asked earlier, if you just got here, what writing goals do you have for your student? We'll talk about what IEW has to offer in SSS1B, but I'd love to know, what are the goals you have for your student? Okay, let's dive into goal or the thing I love, thing number 4. I went through the first 3, which are the video lessons, the student samples, the goals, schedule breakdown, and the checklist. The 4th thing I love about kind of SSS1B, if you buy I think it's called the basic package, they pair it with Fix It Grammar 3, book 3. Now, keep in mind with the SSS program, I didn't put this down as kind of a benefit, but I love that you just select the leveling based on your student's reading level. So SSS1B is for students who are reading at a 6th through 8th grade reading level. It's not necessarily that they have to be physically in the 6th through 8th grade, but they're reading at a 6th through 8th grade reading level, then that's what those sources are going to include. Now, Fix It Grammar Book 3, which is Robin Hood, that's paired with that's paired with SSS1B. If you were to take an IEW class or my IEW class, I actually add that. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. You get the writing and the Fix It Grammar support. But this is cumulative. So you want to make sure that you are starting your student where they should start. Now, IEW says if you're, starting with 1 is probably a really good place. And I will say it gets progressively more in depth as you go along. So it's really important that they have mastered the skills that are taught in the first 2 levels before they would move over to Fix It Grammar 3. But if they have, some of the things that are included that I love about Fix It Grammar is they are set up as kind of editors for the author who has written Robin Hood. So they get a chance to practice their editing skills on somebody else's work, and with the hopes that obviously their skills that they're learning in Fix It Grammar would translate to their own writing. Also, what I like about it, especially as an instructor or as a parent, we have the same terminology. Okay, so the things that they are learning in Fix It Grammar will reinforce what they're learning on the writing side of SSS1B. So when we say words like quality adjective or who which clause, or we talk about comma rules, we're speaking the same language. If for some reason you're giving them feedback on their actual paper, you all can use the same language. Now, here, the purchase of this book entitles you to have a free download. And I hadn't mentioned this before earlier in my other videos, but I do want to mention it here. You get mastery, learning, ability development, and individualized education e-audio. So you get a free audio of that. You get a free audio of but, what about grammar? And you get a Fix It Grammar Robin Hood vocabulary list with definitions. So you get that as a free download with the grammar that is paired with IEW SSS1B. So that's something I had forgotten to mention earlier, but I do love that. Now, in Fix It Grammar 3, some of the things that your student will be focused on and learning, they'll obviously go over parts of speech. In book 1 and 2, they would have also gone over parts of speech. So, again, that's going to be reinforced. They'll for adjectives, of course, they'll talk about article adjectives, possessive adjectives, adjectives after a linking verb, coordinate adjectives, and cumulative adjectives. So it is not a walk in the park kind of grammar program. Your students will be very well prepared for any academic writing in high school and in college if they go through that this entire Fix It Grammar program. For capitalization, they'll talk about, the first word of a sentence. We all know to capitalize that. Proper nouns, that's pretty common. The personal pronoun I, pretty much know that. Interjection, how to capitalize using quotation marks. I do see a lot of mistakes, early on with new writers when they are adding quotations to their writing. They kind of make some errors when it comes to that. Proper adjectives. They'll talk about punctuation, obviously in marks. They'll talk about commas. They'll talk about that clauses. Do you use commas with that clauses? And probably I'm hoping we know we don't use that commas with that clauses. How do you use commas with a noun of direct address? Clausal openers. Do we use commas? How do we use commas? So they'll learn all of that. They'll also learn about main dependent clauses, adverb clauses, who, which clauses, and that clauses. They go over homophones. So again, it's really, really very thorough. And then, as I said earlier, so IEW has these things called stylistic techniques because they teach two skills, the skill of structure and the skill of style. And that's something I love about all of the programs. Your student is continuing to practice the skill of planning before they write, and then adding descriptive language. And so they will talk about all of the stylistic techniques, the strong verb, quality adjective, who, which clause, ly adverb, adverb clause, the subject opener, prepositional opener, ly adverb opener, the clausal opener, the very short sentence opener. These are all kind of IEW terms. But the nice thing is, because they have and they're introduced to this kind of like grammar when it comes to the stylistic techniques, but they're also writing those or using those stylistic techniques in their actual writing. So the nice thing is, again, there's a good marriage between what they're learning in SSS1B and what they're learning in grammar. And so anytime you can make those connections in, learning, it's so much better, right? It's so much better. And I think it like stays in in our brain better when we can make connections. And last but not least, every single week has 4 vocabulary words and Fix It Grammar that your student will be introduced to, in addition to the vocabulary words that come with the IEW SSS1B. And last but not least, this is the 5th thing I like about SSS1B. It comes with literature suggestions. I don't know about you, but I know, I have 4 children. I don't know why I'm doing this, not 8. Just, I don't need to give myself any extra. I'm good. I'll let the rest of y'all populate the world. I'm sticking with 4. But with 4 children, sometimes it was just super tricky to find curriculum for every single thing. So I love when I can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, or 3 birds, or however many birds need to be killed. But with the SSS1B program, which here looks like this, they in the beginning have literature suggestions. So if you're like, okay, I need to add literature, now where do I find literature? IEW has you covered. They have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books that they recommend across the 24 lessons that they offer. So again, you could just simply say, you know what, these are the books that we're going to read this year. I'm going to grab those. They are the 21 Balloons, the Children's Homer, The Adventures of Odysseus and the Tale of Troy, Ballet Shoes, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So again, excellent books. Swiss Family Robinson. It says optionally, which I'm sure your kids will love to do that. You can watch the Walt Disney movie. So, throwing a little popcorn, some pizza, and the Walt Disney movie. Have a good time. Call that school and literature. The Hobbit, and then Just So stories by Rudyard Kipling. So again, for you as a homeschooling parent, grammar, writing, literature, check. So I like that aspect of IEW SSS1B. Now, here are two things that I would prefer. I would have preferred that IEW added to the SSS program. Not a huge deal, but if you have used the theme-based writing, you know that theme-based writing comes with these vocabulary cards in the back. I really liked those because I would cut those out and use them to, to refresh our memory on what the vocabulary definitions were. So it was just really easy to kind of pick up and go. We can go in the car and just, okay, let's go through our vocabulary card, just do a 2-minute review of vocabulary. So I did like that aspect of theme-based writing that they don't have in SSS1B. So, or any of the SSS programs. They do still have vocabulary, so you can, put a Quizlet together. I think IW has some Quizlets. I have to go find those links. If you have those links, drop them in the show notes for me. If you know where those Quizlet links that IW has for the SSS program, I know they exist in Quizlet somewhere. I just have to go find them. You can do that with your students. Obviously, you can just use good old-fashioned index cards. I've mentioned that earlier, so you can just grab an index card. On the video lesson, the vocabulary word and the definition drop on or plop on the screen. So you can just have your student write the vocabulary and the definition on index cards. You're welcome to do that. That works too. I just don't like the extra writing. And if you have a student who, kind of struggles with the writing, like physically writing, I had that. Then I kind of like the vocabulary cards because it removes the physical writing of the vocabulary words. But you just write those down. Use index cards, use Quizlet, use Kahoot. They're all free. And that's one way you can kind of deal with not having the vocabulary cards if you're like me and you really like the vocabulary, the physical vocabulary cards. And then I would say no practice pages. So in the theme-based writing, which I do like, they have practice pages. So you like practice your ly adverbs, practice your who, which clauses with sentences that they have already populated that would help the student to brainstorm adding the stylistic techniques to their writing. I really like that in the theme-based writing. However, on the video, he does brainstorm. So it's not that brainstorming doesn't happen. It's not that the students aren't getting ideas to share. They do have these aren't necessarily practice pages. I'll show you the difference. They do have these pages where you can gather information. I'll show you an example. And I do like this. I do like this. For example, let's see. They're yellow in the teacher guide. In your student guide, when they get to quality adjectives, on the video lesson, they'll brainstorm different adjectives and things of that nature. And then, of course, there's space for the student to add their own adjectives. But I like that each lesson in theme-based writing had practice pages that were specific to that lesson. I just found that really much more helpful for my students, my actual children, and I liked using it. I was introduced to IEW through Classical Conversations, where we started with the theme-based lessons, and that really helped us. I liked it. But again, it's not a huge deal, but for those of you who like those practice pages, those little extras, you might miss those. But other than that, I really like what SSS1B has to offer. So again, just a quick review. I love that it has video lessons that helps your student move to independence, and they have great support for independence. It gives you some space from your dialectic child to allow them to, appropriately have some distance and practice independent working. For student samples, that's the second thing I like. But those student samples are not in the book. They're not in your guide. They're not in your student's guide. They're in your IEW account. So log into your IEW account, go to your files. You'll find them along with some other downloads. Every single assignment has goals, a schedule breakdown, and a checklist. I love that because you know what to expect, and so does your student. Grammar, I love how the grammar program is set up. No program is perfect, but I love that again, it gives you that common language of grammar for your student. When you all are talking about their own writing, it allows them to practice editing skills on someone else's work. And so it allows them to kind of scrutinize and practice those skills that hopefully they will learn to apply to their own writing. The literature suggestions that are provided in SSS1B, love those because it's just one less thing you as a homeschooling parent have to think about. You can just say, here are the books we're going to read this year, so I can round this ELA program out for our school. I would love vocabulary cards, but Quizlet, index cards, Kahoot, you can get around that to continue to reinforce the vocabulary words. And practice pages, I would definitely love that they would have, if they would have had practice pages, but he does brainstorm on the screen. There are some pages that are provided in the IEW guide where they can write their notes and write down what they brainstorm on the screen. But again, I mean, I have 2 students who have IEP at 504. Guided notes are great. And those practice pages and that theme-based writing kind of acted as guided notes for us. So I liked that aspect. If you have any questions and you didn't ask them during the live and you're watching this on the replay, make sure you drop your questions inside of the either Facebook or YouTube or wherever you're watching the replay. My question to you was, what writing goals do you have for your student, especially your students who are reading at a 6th through 8th grade level, primarily your middle school students? What are the goals that you have? And in what ways do you feel like IW would meet those goals? So hopefully I've given you some information that will be helpful for you. If you want to connect with other homeschooling moms or just moms in general, because not all of my book club books will just be for homeschooling moms, but I do, because I homeschool for 10 years, I do like to stay kind of in that world and support that world. Raising Critical Thinkers is our August book of the month. And so grab that book, go to your library. You can get it on Audible, which is how I'm listening to it right now. It's about 10 hours. So it'll take a minute, but it's great. It's not an easy, walk in the park read in the sense that it will challenge you. Like, it will definitely challenge you. You will probably have some reactions to what is being stated. But it's a good challenge. It's a good challenge. They're good questions that we need to be asking ourselves and our children. And that book club is Sunday, August the 28th. That's my birthday, by the way. So come hang out with me for my birthday for a little bit. It's 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, but you do need to register. So I know that you're coming. So make sure that you grab the link below and register and join the list so that you know that you'll get the link to the Zoom and that you will get updates from me from time to time before the book club takes place. So anyhow, I hope that you have learned something. If you did, make sure you hit like or subscribe, or like and subscribe, so that you can be notified when I post new videos. And if you want to hear anything about the SSS program 1B that I offer, the class, I do offer support to you and your student. If you are looking for support, I will go ahead and pop that video on the screen, and then we will end the live for the day. Have a great day, and you will see me back here tomorrow around 10 a.m. ish, probably like 10:05, 10:10, no later than 10:10. And tomorrow I'll be talking to you about the SSS2A level. So SSS2A, and that is for students who are reading. I'll show you, do I have it? Yeah, I will show you a picture of that. I'll be talking about this one tomorrow. So join me, because every day this week I'm going to go live and just talk about all of the SSS programs, because I love them and I want you to, I know we're at this point where we're like, oh, I need to make a decision. Do I need to, buy this or not? What do I do? So I'll talk about the 2A program. I've already talked about 1C. Today was 2B. No, yesterday was 2B. Today was 1B. Tomorrow will be 2A. So come back and see me tomorrow. But I'm going to pop on a video about SSS1B in my class, and then I will see you tomorrow. Take good care, everybody. Hi, I'm Mrs. Brown, certified IEW instructor, and I'm glad that you're considering the Structure and Style for Students 1B class that also includes Fix It Grammar Level 3. Now, with Structure and Style for Students, this is the writing portion of this class. There's kind of two classes in one here, and it's designed for students who are reading at a 6th through 8th grade level. It's also designed to support you and your student as you work through the video lessons that are provided through Structure and Style for Students. Your student does not need to have previous IEW experience to join. Now, when it comes to the grammar portion of what I teach in this class, it is important that your student master the concepts in level 1 and level 2 before moving to level 3. Fix-It grammar is cumulative. If you're not 100% sure about placement, IEW has excellent customer service. I recommend calling them. Now, if you have any questions about this class, be sure to see my FAQ link inside of the class description. If you would like support for yourself and your student, and you don't want to do this whole writing and grammar thing alone this year, I'd be delighted to have you all on my writing team. Take care.